Hi, this is Marius Rosedale. I'm here to present my executive summary of my capstone project. The capstone project was from my master's in education transformational leadership. And the purpose of my project was to address low student success rates in their first course with our university. And this is a project I've actually worked on over the last several years. Title of my project is Increasing Student Success Through the Use of New Student Orientation in Online Education. The problem being addressed within my project was, as I said, low first course completion rates for new students. And when I speak of a first course completion rate, what I mean is students who successfully complete the first course on their first attempt. At the time that we began this project was 2014. We had done a study that indicated that our first course completion rate for our students was 67%. That means that almost 1/3 of all students who started a program with us were not successful within their first course the first time they attempted it. This was an alarming rate to us within the administration as, for obvious reasons, the purpose of being in education is to educate students. And so in the event that almost 1/3 of them were not being successful, this was an enormous problem. Prior to determining a solution for the problem of the 67% first course completion rates, we knew we had to do some research. We went through some of the classic, risk-benefit analysis. I got on the internet and went to NACADA, which is the National Academic Advising Association, and consulted their website and resources for some direction in terms of what type of solution we could begin to implement. What I found through my research was that it was not uncommon for students to have lack of success when moving into an online environment for a variety of reasons. One reason in particular that I found that is interesting is the idea of online students experiencing feelings of isolation. Most students, when surveyed, did indicate that they were subject to these types of feelings of isolation in the online environment. By being forced to remain active learners as well at all times, this can be very difficult for students as well. In a traditional classroom format, a student can go to class, sit, and listen or not listen on a day if they're not feeling well and still be able to go through and do just fine in the course. In an online environment, you are forced to be an active learner at all times, and this can cause difficulty for many students. Another major factor that we found for students, or that was a commonality, is that students experience technical issues and don't know how to solve them, which ultimately leads to them falling behind and then giving up on the course. Some additional research showed that new student orientations lead to an increase in comfort for the students, which leads to an increase in retention and overall success for students. Students experience similar increases in success regardless of whether the orientation was synchronous or asynchronous. What this indicated to me in my research was that regardless of the format of the orientation, the things that were going on within a new student orientation were critical to the overall success of a student in an online platform. So our solution was to develop a new student orientation for Aspen University. The goal of this new student orientation was to increase student success through the following ways. Teach the student the basics of how to use the classroom, avoid some of these technological issues that students experience along the way. Provide accurate expectations related to online learning. We needed to make sure that students understood that they would be active learners and that there was no opportunity to be a passive learner in an online environment. We had a goal to diagnose and support technology issues prior to beginning class. So working with the student through the online orientation, we would determine, is this student likely to struggle with the technology piece of the puzzle? And in the event that we determined that they would be likely to struggle, our response was to provide a little bit of additional support. This additional support came in the form of scheduled weekly meetings, additional tools that we would send them via email, as well as some initial troubleshooting throughout the orientation process. We had a goal to provide the opportunity to discuss and prepare for any potential academic issues, as well as ensure the student understands all the types of support that were available to them. So in addition to the technological piece, we wanted to make sure that students understood that in the event they had any academic concerns or issues, that those issues would be able to be handled as well. And most importantly, we want to begin to form a relationship that will help lead a student to success. So what we came up with was a two-part orientation. The first part of the orientation was an asynchronous portion that all students could do at any time of the day or night, regardless of their schedule, without needing to schedule anything with an advisor. This asynchronous portion of the orientation included practice activities designed to help teach the student how to use the classroom, provided the basic expectations of being a student, and gave tips for success as well as some other resources that students may find useful as they begin class. We followed this with a synchronous version of the orientation, which required a one-on-one phone call with their advisor. During this one-on-one phone call with an advisor, they would discuss the asynchronous portion of the orientation, discuss school-related issues, challenges, etc., discuss much more in depth the expectations of the classroom as well as of being an online learner, as well as provide, most importantly, support. What we found once we implemented this orientation was that we had great success. From our point in 2014, where we had a 67% first course completion rate, 2015 we rose to 79% first course completion. 2016 we rose to an 88% first course completion, topping off in 2017 with 89% of all students that start their first course with Aspen successfully complete that course on the first attempt. This is a number we're extremely proud of and attribute largely to the implementation as well as the constant focus on an effective new student orientation. I have two success stories of students in particular I'd like to share to give a better understanding of just how this new student orientation is useful for these students. Student number one was a 60-year-old nurse from New York City who was told that she had to earn her bachelor's degree or she would lose her job. She had not been to school since 1990 when she earned her RN. In her first conversation with an advisor, she told them very specifically that she is bad with technology, not comfortable with technology, and quite frankly, not interested in becoming better with technology. She had multiple difficulties during her orientation, primarily concerning the lack of comfort that she had with her technology. Throughout this orientation, it became clearer and clearer that this student was likely to struggle with the technology aspect of going to school online. We were able to identify these risk factors of the student. We worked with her on a regular and weekly basis throughout the duration of her first course and actually into her second course as well, providing assistance. Her advisor would sit with her and work with her on how to upload her assignments, how to understand her Turnitin score, how to adjust her papers to not have high Turnitin scores. She's currently in her last course of her BSN, 10 classes in. She has a 4.0 GPA, and the last contact her advisor had with her, she told her advisor that she's now considering pursuing a master's degree. Success story number two is a 59-year-old male nurse. He works for a hospital that is pursuing a magnet status. Part of a hospital becoming magnet status is that 80% of their nurses have to hold a bachelor's degree. What this causes is many of these hospitals then turn around and require their nurses to go earn bachelor's degrees. This student stated he'd not been a student in, quote, decades. He was not familiar or comfortable with technology as a whole, does not use a computer in his daily life. We identified risk factors during the orientation call and scheduled weekly follow-ups with the student as well. In addition to his weekly appointment, he would typically call sometimes 3, 4, and even 5 times in a day when trying to submit his assignments. He's currently in his 6th course. He has a 4.0 GPA, and he stated it to his advisor specifically that his orientation prepared him to be successful despite his concerns when entering the program. So this has been my executive summary of the need for an effective new student orientation, as well as the implications of providing a very effective new student orientation. We have been able to raise our first course completion rate significantly through the implementation of this orientation, and I have high hopes that within the next 5 to 7 years, this will have a back end impact of raising our graduation rates into the 80s. Thank you very much, and I appreciate everything you've done for me, Dr. Mangan. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'm sure I will see you or talk to you soon.